I nearly stopped doing art because I got fed up with painting. When I was younger, I painted digitally a lot, but my pieces never quite turned out how I wanted. Something was always off about them. I eventually set my full energy to drawing maps, and for a while didn't paint again. Since then, I've learned a lot about art. I've even picked up painting again. So I put together 10 tips for starting your art journey to keep you from losing your spark. Tip number 1. Look at tons of art. I tell this to everyone who asks me for tips on drawing maps, and it has helped me so much. Now, this is pretty simple. Like I said, all you gotta do is look at tons of art. Go on to Google or Pinterest and just search for whatever art you're trying to draw. If you're trying to draw maps, search up fantasy maps on Pinterest and just scroll through and find cool ideas that look awesome. Just spend 5 minutes scrolling. It's that simple. You don't really need to do anything. Just scroll through those pictures and like things and save things for later. This is just to get your creative fluids going. Another thing that can really help is saturating your For You page with these searches. So if you're on Instagram and scrolling through things, be sure to pay special attention to those map things and make all of your For You page map related. That will also help give you some passive inspiration while you're looking for something to draw. Tip number 2, draw lots. This is the backbone of learning any sort of art. Repetition and lots of it. You definitely cannot learn anything on your first try, and if you can, then that is a talent I wish I had. Now, drawing a lot can get boring, so to avoid getting bored, try drawing mini projects or painting mini things or just doing miniature projects that you really don't care that much about, but can take maybe 10, 20, 30 minutes for you to practice a technique of some sort. If you're trying to learn how to draw maps, draw a lot of mini maps. I do this very often when I'm trying to learn a new technique. It's just doing a mini map of something where I include, let's say I'm trying to draw mountains. I include a lot of mountains just so that I can experiment, learn what to do and what not to do for those mountains. And you can do this for anything, painting, drawing, making characters. I mean, if you're trying to learn how to draw people, just draw a whole bunch of eyeballs. It's not very fun, but you can draw an eyeball in about 10 minutes and then move on to something else. It gets all those right neural pathways firing and gets you kind of in the zone for drawing. Also helps you learn a specific technique or style a lot faster. Drawing a lot typically follows your inspiration scrolling, so just keep that in mind. Tip number 3, try different styles. This plays big into drawing lots. While you're drawing a lot, change how you're drawing. This keeps you from getting bored when you're drawing a lot, because instead of drawing the same thing over and over and over, you can draw the same idea over and over and over in different ways. Experimenting with different styles also allows you to find your style. So if you try 10 styles, maybe the first one was the one that you wanted to replicate the most. Maybe you found the 5th style was the one that you actually click the most with, and that's the one that is the most enjoyable and the easiest for you to replicate or even to blend styles together. Whichever way you do it, it definitely helps you find your style and keeps you from getting bored. Tip number 4, work in layers. This has to be one of the hardest lessons for me to learn personally. Often I'll go into a project and want it to be perfect the first try, but to be honest, it rarely ever is. Now, what do I mean by work in layers? Well, if you're a digital artist, this is pretty straightforward. Click the new layer button, but it does go a bit deeper than that. Working in layers goes beyond just literal layers. It extends into the process of how you are doing your art. It takes the sketch to blocked in shapes. It takes your blocked in shapes into shadows and lighting, and then further refining those small details. When you're drawing something, trying to go for a perfect end product at the beginning is very, very difficult. So layering those things on top is like chipping away at a block of stone until it eventually turns into a human hand. Sure, it's not going to be perfect at first, but through these little changes in details, these sketch to block, to shadows and lighting, to refining shadows and lighting multiple times, that allows you to evolve your piece each step before you fully commit to anything. It's almost like slowly focusing a camera in on your subject. Tip number 5, trace. People are often afraid to trace others' pieces, even myself. But tracing isn't bad if your goal is to learn. Tracing lets you focus on specific techniques or aspects without forcing you to think about composition or proportions or any of those other annoying things. Tracing is a way to kind of passively work on your art. Now, tracing is a little bit more difficult when it comes to things like painting, but what I am personally going to be doing is I'm going to be taking a piece of art online and redrawing it either on a canvas or digitally and trying to just focus on the painting techniques, because I am currently working on trying to figure out, well, how much do I block out? What do I block out? What do I paint in for the details for lights and shadows? I'm getting there and I do understand it, but trying to figure out composition and lighting and all these other things is a little bit difficult, while I'm also trying to figure out, why does this clothing fold not look right? Tracing can also help you discover the secrets of an artist's technique that you wouldn't otherwise normally find. If you're tracing a character and you see something that they did to clothing folds, for example, since we're on that topic, that seems off to you, then you can look back at your other things and be like, oh, this person's art looks a little bit better than mine because I was following my reference too closely. So you can kind of dissect a artist's piece a little bit easier while you're tracing. It's almost like a self-guided tour to an artist. Tip number 6, create a formula. I've often seen many professional and academic artists hate on formulas, but learning art already takes a crap ton of brain power. Formulas let you focus on learning without having to guess each step. After your first take at your piece, make a formula. It doesn't matter if it's right or if it's wrong. Just make a formula that helps you understand what you think you know. If it's wrong, you'll learn later and you can evolve your formula to the mistakes that you have learned. And that's how it often happens. A formula will force you to think about your art in a slightly different way, especially if it's wrong. If you have a wrong formula and you're doing it the wrong way, you can feel, this isn't right. So then you are thinking, well, what is the right way to do it? And through research or trial and error, you can then evolve your formula and evolve your technique. Make sure to write down your formula so that you don't forget it while you're doing your next practice piece. I've done that a few times and had to wing it, and that kind of defeated the purpose. Tip number 7, study the pros. I already said look at lots of art. Now you're gonna study art. People have painted and drawn and done art forever, and so there are lots of people who know better than you. and who know better than me for painting. So you should find your inspirational artists. For me, it's Jakub Rosowski and Christopher Tolkien. Jakub did some art for a board game called Scythe, and I fell in love with his art. And ever since then, I've wanted to at least replicate his style or develop his style into my style. And so that's what I'm actively trying to do right now, is I'm trying to learn his style in my pieces. Christopher Tolkien was my biggest inspiration when I learned to draw maps. If I wasn't sure why something looked off in my maps, I would always go back to the map of Middle-earth, and that helped so much. So find your inspirational artists and study their pieces till you're bored. This almost plays into tracing, but you're studying them. You're looking deeply. You're questioning why. What was Christopher Tolkien's motivation behind this placement of this particular mountain? Your goal is to find out what they do that you don't. So studying art really helps that. You can also watch tutorials made by professionals on YouTube or on Patreon, like myself. If you're learning to draw maps, you should check out my Patreon, link is in the description, where I go in depth into drawing maps, teaching you what I learned when I started drawing maps 7 years ago. And I'm still learning, and I'm sharing what I am learning with you guys. Tip number 8. Enjoy the learning process. Together with working in layers, this is the hardest concept to grasp. If you don't enjoy learning art, you'll get burnt out and likely eventually quit. Art isn't mastering your art. It's mastering the skill of learning. When you're an artist, you will never fully understand your art because your art is constantly evolving. You are constantly learning new techniques, new styles, implementing those into your style and developing your style further. So if you don't enjoy the early learning process, then you're not going to enjoy art to its fullest extent. Like I said, I've been drawing maps for over 7 years. Such a long time, I can't believe it. But I am constantly learning things and relearning things. In fact, I am currently working on this 365-day map project that you see. And the amount of things that I have learned just within the last few months with this big map that I hadn't learned with my smaller maps. Playing into what I said just a little bit earlier, being okay with learning lets you enjoy the fullness of your project, not just that end bit when you're finished. Tip number 9, get feedback. Good or bad, both help. Good feedback encourages, bad feedback builds. This is pretty fundamental. Feedback is almost pretty much always a given when it comes to creating something. When you get feedback, you get to experience what somebody else is feeling and seeing and all those other senses when they interact with your art. It can show you what you excel in and what you can improve upon. Getting feedback seems really simple, but it's both hard and really, really important. Finally, tip number 10, find a community. Some of my greatest ideas have come from people in my community and my circles. You only have so many ideas. So when you find someone else or a lot of someone else's, it expands the capacity of your mind. It expands your experience of this world, even if you aren't directly experiencing things. And with the internet, this is easier in the modern age than it has ever been before. And with the internet, we have so many niche communities, especially with things like Discord, Reddit, or other social medias. You can find your people extremely easily. Now, this doubles as a way to share your work and get feedback. So if you want to knock out two birds with one stone, finding a community is the way to go. It gives you people who are also on their art journey who I am positive would love some feedback and company. If you want to join my community, check out the Discord. Link is also in the description. We're a big group of very artistic people, so I would definitely encourage it if that is interesting to you. Now, these tips aren't a roadmap to learning how to draw, but they are road signs pointing the way. Pick one or two tips you want to improve upon, and I can guarantee your art will improve with it. I hope you enjoyed the video. See you all next time. Peace.